Look, this video is going to have a pretty wide scope, but don't sweat about it, it'll all make sense in the end. Shang-Chi was a lot of fun. While we were growing up, my siblings and I were fed off Hallmarks, musicals, westerns, and kung fu movies. And that would basically follow the stereotype, so you can guess which parent influenced which genre. Anyway, we would watch even the crappy movies. Bulletproof Monk, Little Big Soldier, Shaolin Soccer. If there was a martial arts form, my dad would skip the rental process and just buy it because he vibed with that sort of thing so much. So when Shang-Chi was announced, I was excited to have another piece of connective tissue within my family. Disney did so well with Black Panther representing an underserved community, and so I was also excited to see classic kung fu choreography mixed with the modern action of the MCU's stunt performance lexicon. My dad coached a lot of sports we were in as kids. I never really got into soccer, but my brothers really enjoyed it, so we started coaching soccer for our high school. There's a lot of stories attached to that relationship we had with him, but one of his coaching tenets was spatial awareness. I joined the soccer team for half a season, again, it's a whole story, to spend more time with my younger brother. Coach White wanted us to be aware of where we were on the field at all times. After we had sort of understood that, he wanted us to be aware of where everyone else was on the field, and then after that, where our opponents were. There's a word for spatial awareness: proprioception. He wouldn't use it all the time because high schoolers are idiots, but that would be his totem word. And again, high schoolers can't master proprioception in a sports season, not with all the plays and foot touches we were drilled to learn. So we never got to the skill that he was envisioning, but that skill that he earned for us came from him watching all of these kung fu movies and wondering how the good guys would know where all the opponents were and how they could best defend against them. Now, spoilers, it's because it's choreographed, but that didn't stop him from translating that proprioception concept to the soccer field. I'm using this story to set up the bus scene, probably the first and, unfortunately, best kung fu scene of the movie, not only because the comedy and CGI get kicked up afterwards, but because the scaffolding scene was too dimly lit for me to be in absolute awe of it. Otherwise, that probably would have taken the title. In the bus scene, Katie and Sean are riding in a new Flyer D60 articulated 60-foot motor coach. Special thanks to Mac Allen on Twitter for both the identification of the bus, but also a really nice breakdown of the entire bus scene from the point of view of a bus operator. I'll let you geek out to the entire commentary with a link in the description below, but here's an abridged version of his breakdown. He gave a rating of the bus driver who had several moments of negligence, including wearing headphones, not wearing a seatbelt, and turning his head over his shoulder to look at the passengers instead of using the overhead mirror. He then talks about air brakes and spring force mechanical brakes. When air brakes lose too much pressure, the mechanical brakes begin to engage, so when the air brakes line is cut by razor fist, losing all pressure entirely, mechanical brakes are applied which will cause the bus to brake rather quickly. So the whole flight is obviously a suspension of disbelief, but that happens everywhere. But throughout this scene, Shang-Chi's proprioception is on full display. Maneuvering through and around the bus is peak athleticism and just so much spatial awareness. If you don't believe me, just look at the driver's seat. All the obstacles in the way of entering the seat and then how he just slides into it. Kung Fu aside, being able to move like that is impressive. Even further, we see 3 people driving the bus throughout the fight scene. Of the 3, Shang-Chi is the only one to use the rear view mirror to check on the passengers, taking that spatial awareness to another level. This bus scene is incredibly dense with Easter eggs. The last one I want to collect before moving on is the Stockton Street Tunnel and the legacy of the One California. The One California bus line is a real Muni route, the on-screen connection being obviously the bus sign and the Stockton Street Tunnel, since there's a good portion of the SFT route that deviates from its Muni inspiration. In real life, Muni's One California travels the same route that 82 Chinatown and a combination of other lines ran after years of advocacy by the Chinatown community. Joe Fitzgerald Rodriguez has an amazingly researched article on KQED about this tiny but representative Easter egg for the bus scene, which I'll link below as well. Anyway, aside from all these fun facts, this was just an awesome fight scene. One of those scenes that would have my brothers and I throwing kicks and punches at imaginary bad guys in our living room while the credits rolled. Gosh, after every single one of those movies that Dad would bring home, it was so much more fun shadow fighting after we were done watching the actual movie. I'm not going to make it a habit in the Picture Car series, but Shang-Chi had a lot of fun vehicles spread throughout the film. A lot of them got wrecked by the bus, and I think we need to be given proper time to mourn their loss. So we start out in the thick of it with Sean and Katie driving a 2020 BMW M8. It's a pretty cool set piece and sets up her role as chauffeur and Shang-Chi's role as passenger, I guess. And then moving on to the bus scene, we have the front half of the bus careening into a white 2015 BMW i8, then onto a 1985 Porsche 744, a couple of Honda Civics, a 2011 Hyundai Sonata, before Kitty continues screaming and we jump at it back in time to an orange i8 before recolliding with the Porsche 944, before coming to a stop on the 2000's Toyota Celica and finally ramming into the 2015 Chrysler 300. Long before and even after that in this movie, we have the Ten Rings charging into the forests of Ta Lo in 90s and late 2000s Land Rover Defenders. With the M8 and the destroyed i8s, as well as the Defenders, BMW and Land Rover sort of take on the role of primary vehicle suppliers for this movie, even if Land Rover isn't officially. BMW has begun to inch its way into the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the BMW X3 and a BMW 2 Series Grand Coupe being driven during the Budapest scene in Black Widow.
Budapest?
We're beginning to see an expansion of the MCU's garage, moving all of Stark's Audis aside and collecting BMWs, Lexuses, and Hyundais. And I'm here for it. This vehicle is just a weird, lovely mixture of so many influences, but as far as any vehicle in this movie goes, I think this one has the longest checklist of reasons for its intentionality in the movie. To cover this section, we're going to break it down even further than I normally do and talk about the vehicle itself, where it's produced, and the aesthetics behind the Razor Fist graphics. The first checkbox is obviously that it's an electric vehicle. The MCU has slowly been shifting its portfolio of branded vehicles into electrified vehicles with Tony Stark's e-tron GT, the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Swords, Audi e-tron, and the new Spider-Man movie is teaming up with Hyundai to bring the Ioniq 5 to the big screen. The BMW iX3 is different from all these offerings, though, because it's a retrofit rather than a born electric vehicle. The iX3 is just an X3 with a different power and drive unit, similar to the Volvo XC40 chassis retrofitted for the XC40 Recharge and the Ford F-150 retrofitted for the F-150 Lightning. Driven from an 80 kilowatt-hour limited to 74 kilowatt-hour battery pack, the iX3 can deliver its nearly 2.5-ton package about 286 miles. With a 0 to 60 of 6.8 seconds, that's coming in quicker than the Solterra and BZ4X offerings that were just released in smaller segments. But I guess the fun numbers are the 281 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. With BMW on its 5th generation of e-drive technology, the iX3 is a worthy descendant of its i8 and i3 lineage. The i8, with its hybrid electric motor, would reach a peak of 141 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. Combined powertrain would net higher, but I'm talking BMW's e-drive technology. While the i3 would reach a 181 horsepower output and a 199 pound-feet of torque. That's the difference between hybrid performance car and commuter electric car. The iX3 seamlessly combines the two, creating an electric performance commuter. With Razor Fist needing to drive up that mountain to work every day, he's going to need all that instantaneous power he can get. Marvel grabbed BMW's most impressive electric vehicle in its lineup to display in Shang-Chi. Checkbox number 2. But checkbox number 3 comes when we learn where the BMW iX3 gets made. BMW Group and Brilliance Group, a Chinese automobile manufacturer, ventured jointly into the creation of the BMW Brilliance Automotive Plant, shortened to the BBA plant. This plant is located in Shenyang. For the majority of channel viewers, that's 181 miles north of North Korea. But also, Florian Munteanu, previously a German-Romanian boxer, was also born in Germany. In this story, he seemingly keeps this background but is rebuilt and retooled by the Ten Rings. Born in Germany, built in China, not unlike the BMW iX3. It's its own kind of self-awareness, its own kind of subtle proprioception that my dad would lecture us on so often. Going into greater detail, Florian confirms in an interview that the entire build was all of Razor Fist's design. The graffiti name on the side, the 3 knife fist logos on the hood, the teeth at the front, these were all Matthias's ideas. Matthias is Razor Fist's real name. Starting with the frozen gray metallic paint job, Matthias has a purposeful order to the things we see on the iX3, almost telling his life story in 3 parts. There's no way to confirm how it happened in the MCU, even with the inclusion of the many deleted scenes, but we do know that Matthias lost his arm as a boy in Romania. Wenwu found Matthias in the streets of Romania juggling 3 balls with his one remaining hand. Reminding him of his son who recently ran away, Wenwu adopted Matthias and gave him a home. In the time that would follow, Wenwu would give him the unique ability to summon a sword from his arm, and so Matthias took on the moniker Razor Fist. Working backwards in the order that we usually see vehicles on the street, we typically see the side of the vehicle last and the grill first. If Matthias traded his 3 juggling balls for a Razor Fist, then we can perhaps deduce that his hand was bitten off. Matthias' journey, beginning when he lost his hand to an animal, swapping 3 balls for the sharply designed prosthetic, and then adopting the name Razor Fist, is told in 3-act structure with each aftermarket design option on the iX3. That's probably not how he lost his hand, but we can never know unless someone on the inside says otherwise. Regardless, I think it's a cool theory. This is where things deviate just a hair. I want to make sure you know that I love this movie and that what I'm about to say is only the tiniest of critiques. But we need some context first. I haven't made a video about the Lexus LC500 in Black Panther. I don't know how to make that video under the cloud of Chadwick Boseman's passing. I'm not a fan of Toyota or Lexus as a whole corporation either, but I didn't have any real issue with the Lexus LC500 in South Korea. Now that Marvel is embracing the Ioniq 5 as the next wave of new generation electric vehicles, it's hard not to look back and think that maybe there were better options out of Kia or Hyundai at the time. But here's the thing with that scene. It's environmental, as in an Asian-made car fits in the South Korean streets. There's better options, but it's not like I needed African representation in the vehicles. There aren't many to choose from that are distinguishable from their North American or Japanese design inspirations. Inoson has the highest claim to a partnership for a Black Panther film, but none of their vehicles are really screen-worthy. However, while the BMW iX3 is built out of China, we have a problem with imperialism in this movie. Even without talking about cars, it was always going to be hard to frame this movie with the exposition of the Ten Rings puppeteering throughout the world in the shadows. The Ten Rings in France, the Ten Rings in the Middle East, all likely, were it not for so many other shadow organizations throughout the MCU, not limited to the Red Room's Widows or Hydra. Despite the claim that their power was felt in every government throughout the past several centuries, Xu Wenwu outfits his fleet with Land Rover Defenders. China has so many electric or even traditional auto manufacturers to choose from. NIO, Xiaopeng are big up-and-comers in the space. iWays is Chinese built but reaching so far as European markets. Heck, MG, a Chinese-owned European brand, has the first ever electric station wagon with the MG5 EV. So there are big enough names that Marvel could have used in the span of the 2-hour and 12-minute runtime. Instead, Ten Rings invests in the European-designed Land Rover over the span of at least 20 years, from his initial adventure through Ta Lo's bamboo forest entry to his eventual safe passage through that same forest. And yes, Jaguar Land Rover shifted ownership in 2008 to Tata Motors, the Mumbai, India headquartered auto manufacturing company, but that relationship's history isn't enough when the Ten Rings was using them in 1996. There are even just the little moments, like the taxi that Shang-Chi and Katie ride into the Golden Daggers Club skyscraper, which could have been of Chinese make, but instead is a Toyota Camry. There's so much representation that could have been naturally sprinkled into the movie to add greater realistic detail without drawing away from the story. You can't tell me there aren't better options for the Ten Rings when producers for Captain America: The Winter Soldier went out of their way to secure a partnership with General Motors. Even beyond that, our title character is never seen driving any of the featured vehicles. Instead, he gets a few seconds in the bus driver's seat. The same went for T'Challa, both merely passengers in their vehicles. Even with that frame of mind though, I'm glad the drivers were the female leads of the movie. Again, it's just the smallest of digressions in an otherwise powerfully built story, which provides greater representation to Chinese audiences. Since Shang-Chi doesn't get a car of his own, this video is mainly about Razor Fist. Is the BMW iX3 the right vehicle for Matthias? I think that's pretty apparent. German-born, but Chinese-built, graphics designed by Razor Fist. This was one of the more involved planning processes for such a throwaway joke. This car is nice, and I'm glad Florian was able to imbue his character with more detail before shooting even began. Florian is a really unique sports actor, and I think we'll continue to see his talents open up in the next few years. I don't think my dad really knew the effect that these martial arts movies would have on us as kids. There's a lot of characteristics that we took on from both of our parents, but sometimes there's just simple gifts that permeate our humor and drive. Without these movies, I wouldn't have a love for the movies and the people who make them like I do. I wouldn't have cultural appreciation augmented by my mom's occupation as a foreign languages teacher. I wouldn't have a real desire to be healthy. Before superhero movies, kids like me soaked in the 90s and 2000s era of martial arts movies, and I think we're better for it. Anyway, maybe it's time to stop talking about me and my family. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.